Hi, I'm Kristina Robertson. I am the Multilingual Program and Equity Administrator in Roseville Area Schools in Minnesota. I have been teaching and leading in English learner education for 25 years. If you don't understand the family's background, their language skills and needs, if they are literate or not in their native language or English, then you're going to have a lot of difficulty advertising events, having the families come to the events. I think everyone is pretty familiar with the need for, childcare and transportation. But beyond that, there's a whole nother kind of cultural aspect to this, which is, why am I coming to the school? Many of our families come from countries where educators are like a god or like a very, very prestigious person in their community, and they would never think to tell them how to do their job, or that they would have some role in this in the ways that we think of it here in the United States. So it's really important that we help families understand how we do things in the United States, but also make the events we do really relevant to them and provide them with the things that they really want to do. So for example, in our district, we have done special theme nights. It might be about attendance. So families have questions like, I called to report my child absent for illness one day. Why did they give me 2 unexcused absences for the next 2 days? And when we tell them that you have to call school every day and tell them the child is sick, they're like, I don't understand why I would do that. If my child's not sick, I will send them back to school. So, I mean, it makes sense, right? So we've done theme nights where we talk about a topic they're interested in, like, how do I report an absence? What's an excused absence or an unexcused absence? We've done theme nights based on the cultural communities. So for our Karen families, they are a group of refugees from Burma. They had a very strong interest in how to do some positive behavioral management at home. Some of the families, especially at the secondary level, they just want to know, like, how do I know how my child's doing? What are the grades? And literally, like, even if they understand A through F, like, where do I get those grades? So much of what we have is now electronic, especially when we get to the secondary level. So, we can show families how to log in and get those grades online. We started doing online town halls using Zoom, and we found that they were really, really effective because you eliminated some of the barriers for our families: childcare, transportation, time, because they could kind of come in and go out as they needed. And we were able to have up to 4 languages in the same room. We had like a language channel. It was a little world icon. The families could select their language. And so it was simultaneous, kind of like the United Nations, where you hear everything being said at the same time. So that was really powerful. And it was really neat because we often had like whole families there together. I think that there used to be a very basic understanding of, they're not at these events, they don't come to school very often, they probably aren't that interested in being part of this or supporting their kids, or that they are too busy working all the time and they just couldn't do these things. And what I've seen since then is that if we make the connections with families and have things that are meaningful for them to be engaged in, and they understand how that will help their child and help the community, they're all in. So I've seen schools that changed things up from doing evening curriculum nights to having a cafecito in the morning. And there were moms that dropped their kids off, and then they just come in for a little coffee. And of course, they talk a little bit about like, what are we doing with reading, and that sort of thing. So it just was a much more comfortable and relational way to have them start being involved in the school. I think another thing that people misunderstand a bit is that if we translate it, then we've included them and we've helped them feel invited. So I always think about, what if I were in Saudi Arabia with my children, my family, and then I got a notice in English that just said, come to the school, we're going to have this XYZ thing. And I've got all these things I'm trying to figure out how to make my life work. I don't know what that is and what's going to be expected of me when I walk in that room. And, maybe I don't even read that well in my own language. I don't know what this is. I'm not going to prioritize that, right? So I think that we have to think beyond translation. I think, when you want to engage with someone who doesn't speak your language, or you don't know how much they speak your language or how comfortable you are. I feel like for a lot of people in majority culture like me and people I know, the first thing we do is we feel like, I don't want to embarrass them and I don't want to do something stupid or inappropriate. And the reality is, my experience with most multilingual families is they are so forgiving and so gracious, and they really don't expect you to understand and know a lot about who they are and what they do. And so just reaching out and smiling, learning some words in the language, making an effort to be inclusive. I mean, I always say, teaching ESL is sort of like playing Pictionary and charades for 2 hours every day, right? I would also say that if it's something a PTA membership wants to really promote and develop more partnership, I would say do a little homework. Talk to your multilingual department leads or your cultural liaisons. Ask them more about the community and who they are, how they came there, what their daily lives are like. Go to the neighborhoods, go to the shops, kind of just get a feel of what their daily lives are like, and then really work intentionally with somebody like a cultural liaison or an ESL teacher or something to maybe begin with like a little group that you got together to just sort of start talking about what's important to them. I will say for communication, the other thing is, again, don't assume that you send a flyer home and they understand what that is or even think it's important. I would say look at how you can set up some regular communication things. In our district, we set up Facebook pages by culture, so we post things on those Facebook pages, and the great thing is we can do a lot of little quick videos so the families can just see it and hear it. We also do some talking points as a text system that will put the English you put in into another language. They have like 100 languages, and the basic program is free, so that's a great thing. And there are also school resources, usually communication devices, that they can send out texts and those robocalls. And so if you work with cultural liaisons, they can make a quick message. My recommendation is always make them really short, like a Twitter, and it's always command style, so it doesn't feel very good because you're saying things like, welcome, come to the school at 7 o'clock on Thursday night to learn about reading. Call this number. But, no one wants to listen to a long message in any language. So it's just about getting that notice there. And also, I'd say that a lot of our families really work well with word of mouth. What they do is they listen to their trusted friends and family. And so if their cousin who's been here for 5 years tells them it's really important, you need to go to conferences because that's how you'll find out what's going on, then they will go to the conferences. So start to work with that network. All the kids do better when families of different backgrounds and different languages are connected and working together for the good of the community, right? So some of the things that you really want to be thinking about if you were going to evaluate the strategies or the work that you're going to be doing is it a partnership orientation? Are you looking to invite multilingual families to PTA to be more inclusive, which might make you feel better, but they're actually not really having a voice there and they're not really integrating as a partner in the work, then it's not going to be that effective, right? I think about my experience with PTA. We spent a lot of time talking about fundraisers, and it's really important work. And bless PTA members. We need you. We do. However, I know that if my multilingual families are at a PTA meeting and they're talking about selling wrapping paper or candles or something, that's just not going to be what they could do. However, in our district, we have a really, really successful egg roll drive. We raise money that way. So how can we expand what we talk about and what we do to really make sure that it's something everyone's contributing to? So taking an asset-based approach to students and families and really understanding that just because someone speaks a different language or has different cultural ways of being doesn't mean that they don't care as much about their kid, that they're not able to do what it is you want to be able to get done on this committee. I do know that some schools have also looked at certain events that they had, and maybe they traditionally had a football gathering or like a game with parents and kids or something, and they changed it to be soccer instead, because that's what a lot of the families were playing. And so they said, well, let's do that so that it can be more inclusive for everyone. What you're really working on is developing trusting relationships and respect between partners. I've seen PTA setups where they, a very successful middle school, where they came together. It was a Latin community and majority English speaking PTA, and they came together and they would do a mingling, some fun activity, something kind of silly, get everybody warmed up. Then they'd have a common theme that they had decided on, like they were really working on like discipline in the schools and should they have school uniforms or not, and that sort of thing. So the Latin community went to another room, the English speakers stayed in another room. They each had their conversations in the language they understood and with their values and what they needed, and then they came back together at the end to do more of a processing and a decision-making process with both languages represented in the room. So I think that's really important. If you don't know how to get interpreters or what that might look like for you, talk to the EL department and they would be able to tell you more about that, or the communications department. There is research showing that when the village comes together, all children will do better. So I would just say, if you feel nervous and anxious about reaching out to multilingual families, think about how nervous and anxious they would be if they were trying to generate that with us, right? So just recognize that, like, you're gonna make mistakes. It's okay. You're gonna say something silly or not get the communication right. It's okay. You're trying. That's the most important thing. So just keep trying.